Caught on tape, my husband and the babysitter. The day I found the hidden camera in my own living room was the day my marriage died. I wasn't looking for secrets. I was just dusting shelves, rearranging photo frames, trying to keep the place from looking like a tornado zone after another week of work and childcare. That's when I saw it, a small black lens tucked behind a frame of my wedding photo, angled perfectly toward the couch. At first, I thought my husband had set it up for security. Maybe some new gadget he bought and forgot to mention. But the longer I stared at it, the more wrong it felt. My chest tightened. I pulled the frame down, turned it over, and there it was. A tiny camera, blinking faintly. My hands trembled as I carried it to the kitchen. I didn't even know how to check it, but after fumbling with the memory card and plugging it into my laptop, the truth hit me like a blade. The first few clips looked normal. The babysitter sitting on the couch, scrolling on his phone, while my daughter colored on the floor. Nothing unusual. I started to relax, wondering if maybe I was overreacting. Then the footage jumped to a night after bedtime. My husband was there, sitting close beside him. Too close. At first, it was subtle. A hand brushing a shoulder, a laugh that lingered too long, the kind of body language you only share with someone you're drawn to. I leaned closer to the screen, heart pounding. Then I saw it. My husband leaned in, kissed him, and the babysitter kissed him back. It wasn't a quick mistake or some awkward slip. It was deliberate, slow, familiar. I slammed the laptop shut, my breath caught in my throat. For a long moment, I just sat there at the kitchen table staring at nothing, my pulse thudding in my ears. I told myself maybe it was just one time. Maybe I was reading too much into it. But I couldn't stop. I opened the laptop again and clicked through the files, one after another. The footage piled up like a nightmare I couldn't escape. My husband coming home early, waiting until our daughter was asleep, then sliding onto the couch next to the babysitter. Kissing, touching, pulling him into his lap, whispering things I couldn't hear but could see written across his face. And then, eventually, full-on sex right there in the same space where my child left her toys scattered on the rug. I don't know how long I sat there watching clip after clip, my stomach twisting into knots. I felt disgust, anger, heartbreak, all tangled together. I wanted to scream. I wanted to smash the laptop against the wall. Instead, I just sat still, numb, replaying years of my marriage in my head. Every late night at the office. Every sudden change of plans. Every time he pushed me to hire the babysitter even when I said I didn't feel comfortable. It all made sense now, like puzzle pieces snapping into place. That night, I didn't confront him. He came home, kissed my cheek, asked about my day. I went through the motions, cooked dinner, tucked our daughter into bed. On the outside, I played the part of the wife who didn't know. Inside, my rage was simmering, sharp and electric. I knew if I said something then, he'd deny it, gaslight me, twist it until I doubted myself. No. I needed a plan. I needed him to see what he had done with no escape. I closed the laptop, tucked the memory card into my purse, and stared at him across the dinner table as he scrolled through his phone. I thought about every lie he had told, every moment he had stolen, every time he had looked me in the eye and pretended to love me. And in that moment, I decided that when the truth came out, it wouldn't be in private. It would be in front of the people he feared disappointing most. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about showing him that betrayal doesn't get buried in silence. I did not sleep. I lay awake listening to the heater click on and off, measuring my breaths so I would not scream. At dawn I made coffee, opened the laptop, and watched the files again with a colder eye. The timestamps formed a pattern. Mondays and Thursdays, always after 9, always when our daughter was asleep. He would arrive home early, the babysitter would linger, and the couch would pull them together like a magnet. I wrote every date down in a notebook and felt my hand steadier with each line. I backed up the card to a private drive, and to a second thumbstick that I hid inside a box of crayons. Paranoia was not my enemy now. Carelessness was. I checked the rest of the house for cameras and found none. That felt worse somehow. He did not need more. One angle had been enough because he trusted my blindness. I rehearsed what a private confrontation would look like. He would tilt his head, soften his voice, and ask if I was sure. He would say it was a misunderstanding. He would pull me close and ask me to think of our daughter. I saw it all so clearly that I could hear the cadence in my head. The script only works when the audience is small. So I decided to widen the room. His parents were planning a small Sunday dinner for his mother's birthday. Nothing fancy, just family, cake, and a slideshow of old pictures. I offered to host to make it easier on everyone. He thanked me like a grateful husband. I smiled and said it was no trouble. I texted my sister Lena and told her I would need help with dessert and with a cable for the television. She asked if I was okay. I said not yet, but I would be. All week I lived in two bodies. In one, I packed lunches, answered emails, and kept the laundry moving. In the other, I edited the clips into a sequence that told the story without question. There was no nudity in the final cut. There did not need to be. Hands, mouths, the way his body angled, the way the babysitter leaned in. It was all there. I added timestamps in the corner so no one could claim it was old. I kept the original files untouched in a folder named Taxes. He kept texting me reminders about paying the babysitter. He called him helpful. He called him mature for his age. Each message felt like a stain. I saved them in a separate folder and moved through my day with a stillness that felt like armor. On Friday, the babysitter arrived at 6. I told him I would be home the whole night, and that his help would not be needed. He nodded, confused but polite, and left. My husband came home later than usual and said traffic was impossible. I stirred the pasta and told him dinner would be ready in 5. He kissed my shoulder. I did not flinch. That felt like victory. Saturday, Lena came over with brownies and a long HDMI cable. We tested the laptop on the living room television. She watched one clip, pressed her palm to her mouth, and stepped into the hallway. When she came back, her eyes were bright with anger I recognized. She asked if I was sure I wanted to do it this way. I said I was done giving him chambers to retreat into. She nodded and squeezed my hand. I wrote one page for myself that night. It was a list of simple sentences I could say if my voice shook. I am not confused. I have the dates. I have the files. I will be filing for divorce. Our daughter will be protected. There will be no argument tonight. I read them out loud to the empty room until the words felt like stones I could step on. Sunday came soft and bright. I set the table with the white plates and plain linen napkins. I hid the thumbstick under the runner and taped the HDMI cable along the back of the console so no one would trip. I laid out the cake knife, the candles, and a lighter. He wrapped a gift for his mother and hummed while he tied the ribbon. He looked happy. That felt like information more than insult. When the doorbell rang, voices filled the house at once. His parents, my sister, his brother with a bottle of wine, everyone shedding jackets and asking where to put the gifts. The smell of roasted chicken and buttered carrots covered the first awkward minutes. He made a toast to his mother. She laughed and dabbed at her eyes. It looked like any ordinary family night. That was the last thing I intended to preserve. After dinner I stood, thanked everyone for coming, and said we wanted to show a short video before cake. I felt my heart thud like a drum but my hands stayed steady. Lena handed me the cable. I bent to connect the laptop to the television and for a second, I saw a reflection in the black screen. A family, clustered, expectant. I clicked play. The living room went quiet as the first frame filled the screen. A familiar couch. Two familiar silhouettes. His mother leaned forward. My husband frowned like a man trying to remember a room he used to own. The second frame showed his hand. The third showed his mouth. No one spoke. The sound of forks clinking against plates stopped. Every guest went still as the images rolled across the television. My husband's hand lingered on the babysitter's shoulder, his body leaning closer than any husband should lean toward someone paid to watch his child. The clip advanced to the kiss. Audible gasps broke through the silence. His mother whispered his name like a prayer gone wrong. My husband shot to his feet. He barked that it was fake, that someone was trying to ruin him. I had expected that. I spoke clearly, steady, telling everyone the footage came directly from a hidden camera I had discovered behind our own photo frame. My sister backed me up, saying she had seen the files herself. The timestamp glowed in the corner of the screen like a witness that could not be bribed. The clips kept running. Him pulling the babysitter into his lap, whispering things we could not hear, then pushing him back against the cushions. His father stood, face red, muttering that he could not watch his son disgrace himself like this. The babysitter's name was mentioned, and the realization spread through the room like wildfire. Everyone knew whose child he was. His mother covered her mouth with her napkin. His brother cursed under his breath. My husband lunged for the laptop, but Lena stepped in front of him, her small frame blocking the cord. He shouted at her to move. She didn't. I told him it was over. My voice was calm, flat, but it cut through his noise. He turned on me then, his eyes wide, his voice breaking. He said I was cruel, that I could have handled this privately. I told him he had been handling it privately for months, and this was what truth looked like in the light. He tried to spin it, saying it was only once, that he had been drunk, that it meant nothing. I listed the dates aloud from my notebook, one after another, each a nail in the coffin. 10 separate nights. 10 lies told straight to my face. I could see his defenses collapsing as I spoke. His shoulders slumped. His words tripped over themselves. His mother whispered stop, but I didn't. I wanted it finished. The final clip ended. The screen went black. No one moved. The smell of extinguished candles from the cake lingered, faint and sweet. My husband's father spoke first. He told him to get out. No anger, just cold dismissal. That silence after was heavier than any shouting. My husband turned to me, his face twisted with something between rage and pleading. He asked if I wanted to destroy our family, if this was really the road I wanted to take. I told him he had already destroyed it, and I slid the divorce papers across the table. The envelope landed in front of him with a soft thud that seemed louder than any scream. Gasps echoed again. His mother began to cry. His brother shook his head like he couldn't believe it, though the proof had been inches from his face. My sister gripped my arm, steadying me. My husband didn't touch the envelope. He just stared at it, chest heaving. Then, like a man trapped, he tried once more to shift the blame. He said I had violated his privacy, that I had no right to spy on him in his own home. I told him the camera wasn't mine. I had no idea who planted it, but it had been his downfall, not mine. That stopped him cold. His eyes flickered with something I couldn't name. Maybe fear, maybe recognition. For a moment, he looked smaller than I had ever seen him. No one defended him. Not his mother, not his father, not his brother. He stood there alone, sweat gathering at his temple, his mouth opening and closing like he had forgotten how to breathe. Finally, he grabbed the envelope and stormed out, slamming the door so hard the picture frames rattled on the walls. The room stayed silent long after he was gone. I stood, unplugged the laptop, and told everyone dessert was ready. No one ate. The guests trickled out one by one, leaving behind half-empty glasses and untouched plates. His parents didn't look at me as they left. His mother's eyes were red, his father's jaw locked tight. I knew they would blame me in some corner of their minds, because admitting the full weight of what their son had done would crush them. I didn't care. They hadn't been the ones living with his lies. When the door finally shut and the house was quiet again, I collapsed into a chair. My sister sat beside me, placing a hand on mine. She didn't say a word, and I didn't need her to. The silence felt different now. Not oppressive, not suffocating, but clean, like the air after a storm. I had expected to feel broken. Instead, I felt sharp, awake, and alive in a way I hadn't for years. The next morning, I woke to dozens of missed calls and messages from him. First came the apologies, long texts about how he had made a mistake, how he loved me, how he wanted to make it right. When I didn't respond, the tone changed. He accused me of humiliating him, of turning his family against him, of ruining our daughter's future. He said I was vindictive, that I had planned this to destroy him. I didn't reply. I took screenshots, filed them away, and forwarded everything to my lawyer. The divorce process had begun, and the only words I wanted from him would be signed in ink across the dotted line. For days, the house felt lighter without him. I moved through the rooms, noticing small details I had ignored before. The indentation on the couch, where he used to sit, was already fading. His shoes were gone from the entryway, his jacket's missing from the closet. My daughter asked where he was, and I told her simply that Daddy wouldn't be living here anymore. She frowned, asked if she had done something wrong. My chest cracked, but I knelt down and told her no, none of this was her fault, and that I would always be here. At night, I replayed the moment when I pressed play on that video. The gasps, the silence, his face when denial no longer worked. That image was etched into my mind, but instead of haunting me, it steadied me. It reminded me why I had done it the way I had. There would be no rewriting history, no manipulating the truth. Everyone had seen it. Everyone knew. A week later, I opened the laptop one last time and deleted the files. Not because I wanted to forget, but because I didn't need them anymore. The proof had already burned through every lie. Keeping the footage would only tie me to the pain. Watching the progress bar crawl across the screen, I felt a weight lift from my chest. I stood at the fireplace, struck a match, and burned the notebook where I had written down all those dates. The paper curled and darkened, the ink dissolving into smoke. I watched it turn to ash, and for the first time in weeks, I smiled. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't closure. It was ownership of my own story. Mark, my lawyer, called a few days later to confirm the process would move quickly. He asked if I was prepared for the custody battle that might come. I told him I was. Because now, nothing scared me. Not him, not his words, not the shadow he used to cast over my life. The betrayal will always be part of my story, but it won't define me. He thought he could keep secrets in the dark corners of our home, but the truth has a way of finding light. That camera, meant for his own purposes, ended up being the blade that cut our marriage open. I don't know who planted it, and maybe I never will. But I'm grateful it was there. Because without it, I might still be living in ignorance, still cooking dinner for a man who kissed someone else on the same couch where our daughter left her toys. Now, when I walk past that spot in the living room, I don't see betrayal anymore. I see a reminder that I survived it. That I chose not to shrink into silence, but to stand in the fire and walk out cleaner than I went in. And for the first time since finding that camera, I know I will be just fine.